are here at the North Texas Buckskin Brigade virtual camp in 2020, and we've been doing career interviews all week long, and tonight we'll do one with Matt Coffman, and he is very involved with our camp, and we just wanted to ask him a few questions about his career.
Okay.
So, Matt, I would just ask you to tell him, what is your full-time occupation?
Full-time job right now. My title is Rangeland Management Specialist, and I work for the division of the United States Department of Agriculture called the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Or you'll most likely hear it just said NRCS.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to land a spot as a grazing land specialist, where my primary focus is working with private landowners on some of your larger scale livestock operations and the finer points of management on operations like that. So I was very lucky to land that. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you work with mostly livestock, or do you work with mostly wildlife?
Well, that's one of the great parts about this job is I get to dabble in a little bit of both. I would say it's probably more on the livestock side of things, but anymore, most ranches or landowners or whatever have a large interest in managing for wildlife, and so I would say it's probably mostly on the livestock side, but I do get plenty of calls about wildlife habitat, wildlife management, and get to help, get to be part of the behind the scenes planning on how to implement a system that accommodates both, and that's really cool. It's really cool.
Do you have time for any kind of a side business?
Yeah, broke farmhand.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about it. That's about it.
So, your interests, your hobbies, how do they line up with your career? Your passions, the things you really love.
When I was younger, honestly, I was interested in just about everything. But I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got to college, but had grown up in agriculture and in a rural area, and that was the natural place to start because I had the interest, and that was my background. And then it just kind of, as I got into college and into courses and in the curriculums, and the range and wildlife management side of things just really appealed to my interest and grabbed me, and that's the direction that it's gone ever since.
Okay.
So that's how that kind of started.
So what's a typical day like in your work world?
That's another great thing about the job, is that my typical days kind of change with the seasons, as with most people in the natural resource field. Typical day, in the springtime, when it's time to plant grass or warm season food plots, or pollinator habitat, or anything like that, we're running and we're looking and we're evaluating the best possible plants to plant on a given location. Depending on the private landowner's goals and objectives. Summertime, we deal with a lot of mesquite up in the Rolling Plains area, and that's my typical work area. I cover a 15 county area around Snyder, Texas, and so in the summertime, we're looking at mesquite trees and spraying brush, and the fall, out doing inventories and mapping ranches, forage inventories. We'll go out on a given piece of property and identify what plants are growing and how many of them, and get that information to a landowner in a usable form where they can use it to help them make management decisions. In wintertime, you're prepping for next year, and brush management is an ongoing thing in the Rolling Plains. So depending on the time of year and what particular species we're dealing with, the recommendations on how to deal with them change. So that varies throughout the year. But and of course there's always the paperwork. You do have, in the deployment of the government, you do have to be prepared to spend quite a few hours staring at a computer screen. But that's just part of it. But I get to deal with, my days can vary, just depending on the time of year. So that's pretty cool.
That sounds exciting. Sounds like you get to get out and help people, and they probably really depend on what you tell them.
It's really neat, when you've worked with someone long enough, and all of a sudden you're that first person on their speed dial when they want to know something or are interested in something, and that's really one of the cooler parts of the job, is that developing that relationship with people that you work with. So it's pretty neat.
You get to stay with the piece of land longer and learn more about that.
To be part of I've been in this particular position 6 years now, and
so how'd you get there?
Oh, it was luck. It was luck. No. It was a lot of hard work, and networking, and I started in actually up in Dumas in the Panhandle as a range specialist there. Then they sent me down to Roby in the Rolling Plains, and then worked 3.5 or so years there. And then this position as a grazing land specialist opened up in Snyder, and applied for it, and fortunately they liked my resume and offered me the job. But you've got to pay your dues in any career field. You're going to have to pay your dues, and keep your head down, get your work done, and it'll pay off in the long run.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about success. So in your field, and the success that you've created so far, that you've experienced so far, what do you think has led you to that?
Building the resume. In a field where it's actually pretty highly competitive nowadays for not so many jobs. Anything you can do on the resume to stand out is good. Network, probably one of the biggest things that is important in making your way into a career field, in any career, is the network of professionals that you build and that you surround yourself with. So it helps you keep your options open. I know the natural resource field is a pretty tight group. And any given day, I'm talking to a private landowner, or another agency employee like Parks and Wildlife or Extension, or the private sector, private consultants, and ag science companies, and local contractors. But just make sure you network, and you keep your name out there, and you develop those professional relationships with people, and pick their brains. And there's people that have been in the field for a while, and use those as a resource. There's borrow as many brains as you need to get a job done right. That's probably probably some of the biggest points that I can think of.
So, if you could go way back to high school, what would you tell yourself? What would your advice be?
Let's see here. I would probably tell myself not to worry so much. I know, we've got kids out there right now that are prepping for college, and we're trying to decide on maybe what job they're interested in, or what field they'd like to go into, or maybe they don't have any field that they're particularly interested in right now, and that worries them. I would probably advise them to not worry so much. You know, work hard, work hard, and make sure you have your shot to get into whatever field that you would like to. But you know, I probably had a picture in my mind when I was in high school of what the ideal life would look like, and that has probably changed 24 times since then. So don't worry so much about setting an end goal right now. I mean, it's good to have goals, and it's good to work towards them, but like the saying goes, you want to hear God laugh, just start making plans, and that's very true. So, you know, the path to that ideal life that you've got in mind right now is not going to be a straight line. It's going to twist and turn and weave and wind, but if you stick with it and work hard and get the job done and you know, build the right relationships along the way, you'll get there. It may not happen overnight, but you'll get there.
Okay.
So
well, thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all for
We've
having
had a
me.
good time.
We have.
Okay.
Been a good week here.